What's up, guys? Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys motivation, inspiration, and a ton of tips to help you guys on your fitness journey. And I hope you guys are all having an amazing week. It is the week after Holy Week, if you celebrate, and after Easter. And I thought that this episode would be very timely because a lot of you guys likely had some social plans on Sunday and maybe ate a little bit too much. We've all been there. Maybe there's some Easter candy lingering in your house and you're finding yourself having a hard time walking away from it. Whatever the reason, I just decided that today it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about what we do if we overeat. And honestly, more importantly, some of the things that people do wrong when they overeat. In fact, I can personally relate to having this struggle myself a long time ago, and definitely know that it can be a mental struggle and something that you don't really want to talk about because there's a lot of guilt and shame and beliefs about yourself. And I'm here to help you guys remove those things. And hopefully this microphone is working okay. I'm still trying to get used to it. Don't know if it sounds any better, but I'm going to keep rolling with it because I kind of like it. Maybe one day I'll upgrade a little bit. I'm still working. I know Corey's going to agree. I got to get the backdraft a little bit better for my YouTube channel. I know you guys just see this white cabinet with right now it has a bunch of stuff on top of it. I'm just haven't done it yet. I got to get myself into like the mood to get my podcast station set up. And this is like my little office, but honestly, if I showed you guys around, there's there's like mobility tools everywhere. I've got like Normatec boots and trigger guns or Theraguns and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, first and foremost, before I get started talking about today's episode, if you guys get any value out of today's episode, any of my episodes, I would love to know. And as always, you guys can go on podcasts on Apple Podcasts and hit subscribe, on YouTube, subscribe. Share this with people that you know might help them. Here I am getting a little tongue tied because I always hate asking for this stuff, but it's how I grow. I grow by you guys spreading the good word of what I'm teaching and knowing that I'm bringing value to you. And I don't want you just sharing it because you think you should. I want you sharing it because, nope, she does bring value. And I think that this would help other people. That's really what I want. So share away. I would love that. You can even leave me some comments. I love that as well. In fact, let me just go over to the comment section. So we got Holly, Slater, and Corey. I don't know who Slater is. Slater, you're new. So welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the YouTube. I'm going to close my comments for a little bit because as I get rolling, sometimes I tend to get distracted. And if Nick, aka Wad Zombie, does show up, he knows, and he always like, Cheryl, stay focused, stay focused. So I'm going to get focused today because today's an important episode because a lot of people do struggle with this. So what to do when you overeat? Well, first and foremost, let's identify what overeating is. And I say that because a lot of my clients who have come from such a restrictive background, they're like, oh my gosh, I overate this afternoon and I feel horrible about it. I totally screwed my day up. And they're reporting that they had like 3 Reese's cups. And I'm like, okay, well, let's like be realistic about what overeating really is. A reasonable portion of Reese's cups is probably 3 to 5 of those little things. I mean, think about that. But we as human beings have knowledge about how many calories are in things. And that makes us think, oh my God, we're overeating. Well, yes, you are likely getting in more calories from that type of food, but it doesn't mean that the actual amount of food is actually too much. Now, what overeating really is that you've eaten beyond beyond the point of fullness. You've actually taken yourself from a place of comfort to a place of like not comfortable. Like, yeah, you kind of want to unbutton the pants. You don't really want to walk around too much. You're feeling a little bit bloated. And now there's also a mental component of this of guilt and shame. And you're already thinking about, well, there's two schools of thoughts here. Some people can feel that and they're like, well, overate a little bit. I'm gonna stop. And others that could actually spiral them to actually go even further. Well, I've already done this. So I might as well have this, this, and this. And that overeating can actually end up manifesting into maybe a whole weekend of overindulging. And that's where we can kind of run into the slippery slope. So what I want to talk to you guys about is just overeating in general, and giving you guys some of the pros and cons, the what not to do's and the what to do's. Now, let me just go over to the comments real quick because I see another one. It's gonna make Reese's cups are so good, and I don't even like chocolate. Holly, I'm gonna be honest. Reese's are the only candy that I like still eat. Like I do get my Reese's cups on Easter. I don't even get the cups. I get the eggs or the pumpkins or the trees. Like it's the holiday ones that I actually like. Okay. All right. I'm gonna close the comments again because I'm not gonna get distracted. So all right, so let's talk a little bit about overeating. Let's just say, you're at a holiday dinner and you decide to go back for seconds and you overeat a little bit. Sometimes it's okay to overindulge a little bit. That's also part like normal. Like we're all gonna have those days where that happens. If it happens regularly, that's something that we actually want to kind of pinpoint and address. But every once in a while, it's normal to overeat a little bit socially. Like at a Thanksgiving dinner, people tend to overindulge a little bit. That's totally normal. But we shouldn't be doing that on a regular basis. All right, let's just dive into it. Okay, so why do we overindulge? Why do we overeat? There's a couple of reasons why I think that people overeat. Number one is, I'm going to be honest, it's just literally dieting for too long, too often. You're literally living in a food prison. And because you're restricting yourself so frequently, whenever you get the opportunity to eat something that's quote unquote not on your diet plan, you have a hard time saying no. And that's why you end up overindulging. And you tell yourself, oh, this is going to be the last time, or I'm going to have what I want now because the diet starts on Monday. And you allow yourself to kind of get into this like restriction, binge, restriction mindset, which ends up just leading you down the path of nowhere. You end up staying exactly the same. In fact, if anything, you end up regressing because mentally, the damage you're doing to your mindset is making it even harder for you to enjoy your life and actually enjoy being present with the food that you are overindulging on. Because now in your head, every time you have it, you're already thinking about how you're going to have to compensate for it. Number two is just not allowing yourself enough flexibility in your diet, which comes down to the first one I mentioned is people are so focused on like getting to the end goal that they don't allow themselves to kind of just being more flexible, like having a couple of pieces of chocolate, going out for a social meal, and being committed to the long term changes you're making rather than how fast you get there. When you don't have any flexibility in your diet, unless you truly do want to live that lifestyle, you're going to end up having breakdowns. It's very restrictive to live that way. Some people don't see that as restriction, but most people do. Most people are like, I would like to have some flexibility. And that's why they end up feeling bad when they end up eating out. If you just build flexibility into your diet, you're going to notice that you don't have the tendency to binge and restrict. You're no longer feeling restricted, so those foods don't have as much power in your nutrition. You can allow yourself to have a couple of them, knowing that like you could always have them. I like to say, when you give yourself permission to eat whatever you want, you usually don't eat whatever you want. You are eating whatever you want. You just don't want the things that you thought you used to have. Okay. Another reason we overindulge, and I already kind of mentioned this, is like you're just enjoying the food. Like there are some foods that just taste really good and it's hard to stop eating them. And sometimes, like I mentioned, that's okay. It's a holiday, it's a social thing, and you eat a little bit too much. It happens. Maybe you don't even feel uncomfortable, but you just know that you ate too many calories. Number four is under eating. So this goes back into the diet stuff. You just are not feeding yourself enough nourishment. And I'm not just talking about calories. I'm talking about getting in enough protein, getting in balanced meals. In fact, it's funny because a lot of people focus on macros as numbers, but they forget to look at macros as food. And I think that there should be a prerequisite to tracking macro numbers is you should know what it looks like to have a macro balanced meal without looking at numbers. And so a lot of people just tend to undereat, and they undereat specific macronutrients and micronutrients, and they're hungry all the time. And so they do end up overeating whenever they get a hold of high calorie foods, which is number five, is consuming too many hyper palatable foods. And hyper palatable foods are going to be your things like your candy, your chocolate, your desserts, your chips and queso, those things that are just like really high in calories, lots of different flavor, and they just make you overeat. In fact, sometimes when you eat the salty stuff, it can make you actually crave the sweet stuff, right? Like you've had the chips and the queso, now you want the cookie, right? So it's like those foods just end up being very easy for you to continue to eat. It's like, I love it when you say you go to a meal or dinner and you're eating dinner and you're like, oh, I'm so full. And they're like, you want dessert? And you were just full 2 seconds ago, but you're like, yeah, you know what? I can have dessert. And it's just funny how that works in two ways, right? Little tangent is people are like, not hungry, but I can have dessert. But if you ask a person to like start eating breakfast and they don't eat breakfast, they're like, but I'm not hungry at breakfast time. I'm like, so like still eat. Trust me, eventually you're gonna fix your nutrition, you're gonna fix your meal timing, you're gonna fix your appetite. But that's how you do it. So those are some of the reasons why you might overeat. There's a bunch of other reasons, but that's the main stuff that I think that people struggle with that they should be kind of looking at. And if any of those resonate with you, I want you to really think about that next time because it's likely going to happen where you're going to be in a situation and you're eating too much. Why are you overeating? Are you just under eating? Do you know if you're under eating? Are you dieting? Have you been dieting for a long time? Is your diet super rigid? Is the food you're eating just super enjoyable and you haven't, had it in a while? Are you somebody that consumes too many processed foods, hyper palatable foods? And do you need to actually maybe get in more nutrient rich foods and balance that out a little bit? So those are some reasons why you might overindulge. Take a sip of my sun-kissed zero sugar orange soda here. Okay. What not to do. This is the first part of this is what you should not do if you overindulge or you overeat. First and foremost, you got to stop talking negatively to yourself. Okay, so I know this is hard, but like in the moment when you are eating and you're indulging and you're trying to enjoy it, you're likely already judging yourself and thinking about what you're doing in a negative way. You're not even actually really enjoying the food because you're thinking about you shouldn't be eating the food. So first and foremost, you got to stop talking negatively to yourself and just allowing yourself to enjoy it. Hey, this food actually tastes pretty good. You know what? I actually really enjoyed that. So next time you overindulge and you're feeling guilty, you're like, you know what? I actually really enjoyed eating that food. And it sounds dumb to just talk to yourself a little bit differently, but shifting the way you perceive your actions is going to change the next time you have that time or the next action. So if this happens again, you're going to respond a little bit differently. Another thing not to do, and I already mentioned this, is to continue to overindulge, right? So let's just say you are, and like I said, you could overconsume calories or you can eat beyond fullness. There's kind of two ways to look at that. But let's just say you overindulged on a Saturday. You maybe went over on your calories. You didn't feel super bloated or, super uncomfortable. You overeat. Don't let that feed into your next meal and then your next day and then your next day. And then tell yourself that you're just going to keep overindulging because you're starting something that's going to, the last supper mentality, I like to call it, because that's only going to dig you further into a hole and continue to reinforce this. I can't have these foods. So when I'm not on track, I'm going to have these foods. And there is no track in nutrition. Nutrition includes all foods. There's no foods that are on the plan and foods that are off the plan, and there shouldn't be. Okay. The next thing I wrote down was, and this is catch 22, is I do think that scale avoidance can be just as bad as scale obsession. But if you know that weighing in is just going to trigger you to either feel bad about yourself, feel shameful, or start to make you restrict things, I don't want you to weigh in. However, if you're somebody that is not changing this behavior and you continue to avoid the scale, you are also likely going to continue to gain weight. And I know this because this happened to me. I was typically eating very clean and very calorie controlled most days of the week. And I could do that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then I would just give in and I could not stop eating. And then what would happen was I would feel like shit about myself and I wasn't weighing in. And I would avoid the scale altogether and I would just go by how I felt. Okay, I feel less bloated now, so I must be better. My weight must be down. And my weight wasn't going down. it was going up. So you don't want to weigh in and trigger yourself into negative behaviors, but you also do want to make sure that you are addressing the issue and making sure that you are tracking trends. And so I do think that a healthy relationship with the scale is being able to step on the scale and not get emotional about it or act on it one way or the other. And so if you know that you're going to step on it and it's going to cause a reaction, don't step on it. But at some point, you're going to have to face that, or you're going to have to change the decisions that you're making, or you're going to gain weight, or you're going to gain weight. The next one is to restrict your calorie intake. What do most people do after they overeat? They think, well, I should probably not eat as much. And this is such a bad thing to do because, again, it just tends to lead down the rabbit hole of binge, restrict, binge, restrict. You have to be honest with yourself and know that, like, honoring your hunger is really important. So, if you are waking up the next day after overeating and you're hungry, like, it's normal to be hungry and eat. Like, don't feel like you shouldn't eat. Now, vice versa, if you overate and you're feeling really uncomfortable still, you also don't have to force yourself to eat. So, I think that normalizing eating patterns, so maybe just eating a little bit of a smaller meal might be fine, but you don't want to be actually restricting your calorie intake. In fact, I think it's best just to go about with business as usual because you're likely going to feel fine. And then the last one that I wrote down was exercising more than usual. So, and I was notorious, like I said, when I would do this, I would do both. I would figure out ways to just train more and I would restrict my calorie intake. And I would call myself, I'm just going to do a 2-day fast or whatever it was. And I would eat very little. It was so stupid. And it's just not healthy, right? It's not healthy. So exercising more than usual is also not the solution. So, okay, I'm just going to burn off all these calories. Now, if you've overeaten and you are bloated and you're feeling uncomfortable, I do think that gentle movement can help get things moving along in the gut. So going for walks and stuff is fine, but it shouldn't be a matter of like, I got to go burn calories. It's like, I just want to feel a little bit better. And that can be super helpful. But exercising just to burn off the calories you burn is once again only going to lead to that mindset of like binge, restrict, binge, restrict. So let me recap what not to do. You're going to break up with talking negatively to yourself and just remind yourself you enjoyed some food and move on. You're not going to continue to overindulge. So if you had a little too much of something, leave it there, move on, because further digging yourself into a hole is just going to be further you have to dig yourself back out. Don't weigh in if it's going to trigger your reactions, but make sure that you are actually addressing the issue of why did you overindulge. Number 4 is you don't want to restrict your calorie intake, but you do want to honor your hunger. And number 5 is you don't want to just exercise to burn calories, but you can get some gentle walking in. Importantly, just get back to your routine training. In fact, what I would say is, hey, I ate a little bit more food. Here's a good positive shift. I'm going to hit a really heavy back squat on Monday because I'm super fueled for it. Like, let it drive you to feel good in the gym. Okay. Now, I want to give you guys 3 things to do instead because I think that it's easy to focus on what not to do. Okay, but what should I do? Because now you're in this place of like, well, I feel uncomfortable, I'm feeling guilty, and I'm not supposed to do all these things, but what am I supposed to do? Number 1 is you're going to want to reflect. So why did this happen? As I mentioned, in the first part of this, why do we overindulge? Ask yourself, why did I overindulge? Were you telling yourself you shouldn't be eating something and trying to avoid it to stay too strict on your diet? And then when you finally decided to have it, you felt guilty about it and that spiraled you out of control. Were you just enjoying being with friends and family and having some food and now you're feeling guilty about it? Is this something that's happening reoccurring in your life? Do you find yourself in this situation? Were you stressed out? Like asking yourself why you actually overindulged. And this is really important because I want you guys, next time this happens, if it happens, to actually take time to ask yourself, why did I do this? And don't just say because I'm weak, because I have no willpower, because I need to, be more strict with myself. No, actually ask yourself, if that is why, okay, maybe I am being too restrictive with my diet. Why do I have to practice so much willpower? Maybe I am under eating. So asking yourself, why did I overindulge? Okay. What to do instead? Number 2 is go back to your nutrition as usual. Now, what I want to say about this is you want to ensure that your nutrition as usual is normalized and fueling your body for you. And this is not a plug for coaching, but if you are somebody right now listening to this and you are struggling with this battle with yourself between like trying to stick to a diet and then falling off the track or falling off the wheels falling off, it might be time to recognize that your nutrition plan right now is not working for you and that there might be some things that you need to have help with that you're not getting by doing it on your own. And I totally understand that that can be really uncomfortable because I've had to reach out for help in my own journey, whether it's health and fitness or, other areas. But it's not easy to ask for help, but it's usually the best thing you never did because when you actually have somebody with logic that's looking at you outside of the emotion that you're dealing with, it ends up making it so much easier for you to apply what they're telling you to do. And you have that accountability now and that support that when you're feeling a certain way, you can kick ideas and thoughts off to them and hopefully make yourself make more progress. So, nutrition as usual. And again, if you don't have a solid nutrition foundation, you got to build that. In fact, a prerequisite for any of you guys listening to this, if you are trying to lose weight, is you need to have a strong nutrition foundation, which does include a healthy relationship with food, knowing like it's okay to eat all three macros, it's okay to eat enough calories, knowing what it looks like to eat meal balance of, between, high quality foods and incorporating some fun foods and knowing what it looks like to create a sustainable calorie deficit if your goals are fat loss, not an extreme one. So it's really important to understand that those things need to be in place before you can actually make progress. Okay. And then the last thing to do instead is to learn what you need to change, which kind of goes down to the nutrition as usual talk that I just made about making sure that your nutrition plan is sustainable. But what else do you have to change? I think that for a lot of people, self acceptance is really hard and like just allowing yourself to enjoy life right now. And I think that a lot of people that are chasing changes with their body don't accept themselves right now. And it's what makes it so difficult. And it's why you keep running down this rabbit hole. You've kind of accepted your identity as someone that's always going to struggle with their weight, that's always going to deal with these, binge tendencies. Because you're not allowing yourself just to like be free and allow yourself to be who you are authentically and recognizing that right now you have goals to improve yourself, not to change yourself. And that will help you a whole bunch. What about flexibility? This comes down to that, balanced nutrition approach. Are you building flexibility into your diet? Or are you trying to live in a very structured, routine, rigid diet plan that's not working with your lifestyle and the actual foods that you want to enjoy? Do you need to build more flexibility into your diet? Vice versa, as I already mentioned, some people do rely heavily on hyper palatable foods, and maybe you need to focus more on food quality and removing some of those things because they are very easy to overconsume and you're having a hard time, controlling your calorie intake from them. So it might be an idea for you to maybe clean things up a little bit and then you can slowly add them back in. Whenever I think about that approach when we're removing things, I think that the goal should always be to add them back in the right balance because food, unlike other things that we typically have to remove that are not, serving us, is something that's going to be around and it should be enjoyable. Nutrition isn't just for fuel. Nutrition is also for obviously, engaging and obviously making memories and, being social and connecting with other people. So we have to ensure that our nutrition plan allows us to feel good in those situations, whatever your choices might be. So if you are somebody that has overindulged and or you do overindulge on the regular and you tend to keep running yourself into the what not to do list and you're stuck in this cycle, the easiest way to break it is to not allow yourself to engage in those behaviors that you typically would do after you indulge, which is really difficult. So if you typically restrict your calories, exercise, weigh in, all those things need to stop. If you continue to overindulge, needs to stop. If you can stop those habits and start to reframe, and just go back about your business as usual and figure out what you need to change, you are going to be much more successful at breaking that cycle. So that's what I got today on overindulgence, but I'm going to head back over to the comments section and see what else people got. Corey with the hitting me hard here. It's almost as if you're saying it's okay to be human. Absolutely. It is totally normal for us to overeat on time. So it's totally true. So undereating is definitely bad. Who loves orange soda? Holly, I love a good orange the diet Sunkist. Oh my gosh, you guys have never. Corey, you don't even know what orange soda is. That's just blasphemy. I used to really get down on the A&W zero sugar root beer, but something about the diet Sunkist, or it's now they're calling everything zero sugar. I for whatever reason, I'm going to assume that they removed the word diet from sodas because I think diet gave bad words. But man, Sunkist, I grew up drinking Sunkist, so the zero sugar Sunkist hits a little differently. You guys remember Surge? Holly, do you remember Surge, the soda Surge? We're getting off topic now. We're going to go into a little fun stuff here. Surge. It was like a very short-lived soda, and it was like, I don't even know how to describe what it tasted like. I don't even remember it. It was kind of like Mountain Dew. It was kind of like a Mountain Dew, but different, but crazy. Corey, you're from South Louisiana. It's called Coke. Oh my gosh. Yeah. True story, guys. I grew up drinking Coca-Cola. Like that's literally all I drank. Coca-Cola, or we would have Capri Suns or Kool-Aid. Like we did not have water in my house unless it was for making Kool-Aid. But Coca-Cola was all we drank. And I did not drink Pepsi. Nope. Could not get me to drink Pepsi. It tasted flat. But Coca-Cola, that shit would just, you would burn going down. It was like that crispness to it. Yeah. Yeah, I love remembering all the wonderful things I grew up on. So you were a Pepsi girl, Holly, really? Oh, it's interesting. My aunt was Pepsi too. Now I like diet soda. So I do the zero sugar stuff. And I do 2 a day usually one around this time and usually one with dinner. But that's what I got today on overindulging. I hope that you guys got some value out of this. If you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to let me know. I'm here. Cherry Pepsi and Pop-Tarts got me through my undergrad. Oh my gosh, Pop-Tarts, another one. I I used to think, well, I still do. Oh, Pop-Tarts for breakfast. Like that was like one of my favorite breakfast foods. But I'll be honest, they put 2 in a pack. And this is the other stupid shit I'm going to go off on a tangent on. They would put 2 Pop-Tarts in a pack. But on the box, a serving size was 1 Pop-Tart. Who is going to eat 1 Pop-Tart? Not me. 1 Pop-Tart. Talk about this is actually a good topic because talk about overindulging. That's not overindulging. Let's be real. If you're going to have a Pop-Tart, 1 is not going to be enough. Just saying. I haven't had a Pop-Tart very, very long time. So, and that's important, guys. As we're closing out on this episode on overindulging, reminding yourself of this. Holly put serving sizes are silly. And she's absolutely right. Like the end of the day, serving sizes, like if you put food on your plate, and let's just say breakfast is normally like eggs, an English muffin, some veggies in your eggs, avocado, coffee, you got this plate of food, right? And then you've got like 1 Pop-Tart. Like volume wise in your belly, that's going to feel very different than, so even though calorically, like that's going to be maybe the same, it's not overindulging. It's just like, maybe you should have balance. Maybe you shouldn't have 2 Pop-Tarts. Maybe you should have 1 Pop-Tart. Hell, we could talk about make it a balanced Pop-Tart breakfast, right? We could have a Pop-Tart with some Greek yogurt and call it a day. But obviously, like at the end of the day, just it's not enough food, so you have to understand that. That's actually going to be a topic I think I need to talk about is just building meals that are like satisfying enough. And that might actually help with the overindulging, right? Like if you talk about another topic here is like, let's just say you are somebody that, you tend to overeat things like chips and stuff. It's because if your snack is only chips, like you're going to be hungry. So maybe you should build some balance into that. Maybe you should have some cottage cheese with it. In fact, I know this sounds weird, but like dipping salty chips in cottage cheese is actually really good. And if you don't like cottage cheese, try the whipped kind. Or there's actually a recipe for some pizza dip with cottage cheese. They actually really like that too. But yeah, I would agree. Nobody eats one Pop-Tart. So another thing was, y'all remember those, I forget, I think it was Hostess makes those cupcakes, and they were like such a fake like glaze on top, but they had like the little white swirls in them. I forget what they were called, but they always came with like a 2-pack. Like, who's gonna eat one? Just like gotta eat two of them. They had like cream in the middle. Man. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking about junk food because I'm not about junk food. But if you guys need anything, you know where to find me. Today is day 2 of my workshop for CrossFitters. If you didn't join in on day 1, you can still join in on day 2. Just need you to DM me because I won't have time to actually send you the email out. I'll just send it to you via DM. And if you want to catch the replay, you can also catch the replays as well. I'm going to have them available for 7 days. So if you want to, figure out if you want to watch them, you can do that as well. But I'm going to sign off here and get ready for my workout for the day. I think I have some heavy clean and jerks and crossover single unders today. Should be fun. So I hope you all have a great afternoon.